What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Today's guest, Jevon Wooden, is somebody that I've had a chance to see in action, and it's why I was so anxious to get a chance to visit with him. Jevon and I's paths crossed a few years back as part of the National Speakers Association, and because we've been on similar journeys, and that's the reason I wanted to invite him to be a part of our show today, because of the path that we're on has come from different directions. Jevon has built a business that's Bright Mind Consulting Group, and he works specifically with entrepreneurial leaders who are trying to scale and grow their business. And what I love about Jevon, if you notice, there's a theme with my guests, is he leads with both his mind as well as his heart. And if you look at both of those things, they have been sharpened and chiseled with a background coming out of the military, working in the IT technology space, and then moving from that into leading and guiding and directing individuals in the area of empathetic leadership. So, Jevon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Mike. I've been looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I know. We've been trying to get our schedules together. You've been a busy man.
Yeah, hey, you too, and that's how we like to keep it, right?
That's it. So, yeah, busy is not a problem. It's a blessing as far as I'm concerned. Jevon, I actually want to start at the present, and then we'll go back. You released a book not long ago. And it's From Functional to Phenomenal, and I fell in love with the title because of the word phenomenal. I think that we're so much more capable of doing more than average, or more than, I know that there's, you don't pursue perfection. It's what's good enough. If you chase what's good enough, you can get where you want. But my gosh, if we can pursue what's phenomenal and get that in our lives, man, it's worth getting out of bed. Tell us about the book, and where did that come from?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Thank you for the kind words on the title. So the word phenomenal to me, when I look at what it entails, like you said, it's something that is possible, but we have to get it in a certain mindset. So I didn't want to just go for good or great. Those words are always used. They're overused to me. But the word phenomenal entails that, ordinary people can do extraordinary things, but we have to get into and be willing to give up and give. So a lot of us think about, all right, for me to do this thing, I have to do these things, right? But it's also, I have to become a different person. And that person that we become, that's where that phenomenal comes into play. And we do that in our lives and our businesses by taking actions, taking steps. And it's something about consistency. That's where that phenomenal comes into play, outside of being great or good, because it's a long-term thing. You don't become, phenomenal or fantastic just by a flash in the pan. It has to be over a period of time. So that's why I chose that word. And then when we think of functional, it's like you said, we're just doing just good enough. We're just making things work. We're doing bare minimum viable product. What can I get away with to be average? And average to me is, quite frankly, it's unmemorable.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us who are high achievers, we want to do more than that and just leave an indelible mark.
Yeah, well, I think in today's time, I was just on a call with a client. We were talking about how do you stand out in today's world, in today's marketplace, and because social media has really created a challenge for us, because there's so much chatter, there's so much static, and people are inundated. And that's why I love this concept that you have about pursuing what is phenomenal, because in that space, that's where you can get noticed. But it's a journey to get there. It's not something you just wake up and do. Tell us about
Right.
your journey. I mean, what are the life stages that you went through that helped to kind of shape your perspective today?
Oh man, what a journey it has been. So I like to call them inflection points. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, Mike.
Okay.
So I grew up in Rochester, New York, and didn't grow up in I grew up in poverty. So that meant that I have different experiences and a different perspective, and also meant that I was able to build resilience through that. But I like to take people and start at the age of 17. At 17 years old, I was in my senior year of high school. I skipped a grade. So that tells you that I had something
Yeah, so
intellectual.
you got a little snap.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I ended up, sitting in a jail cell. And I sat in a jail cell for a few months, just hanging out with the wrong crowd. On a night that I was supposed to go to the movies, the guy I was hanging out with met up with some friends, and they ended up doing a joyride that ended up with me facing 7 years in prison because they was hopping out and doing dumb stuff. And I got hit with an assault and robbery charge. And when I sat in that jail cell, I'm like, man, what is this? What is God really trying to tell me? And I felt and I found after I reflected on that and introspected on what was happening there, that it was meant for me to go through that because it allowed me to see that I had value, and that value was not in alignment with a material possession or monetary. My mom really showed me value by putting up the house so I can get a lawyer, so I didn't have to do that time, because she
Mm.
knew, like, if you got a public defender, you were going to do that time because they don't care, they don't have time to review your case, whatever. They don't know that you're a good kid, and that this was just something that was circumstantial, and all of that stuff. But she put up the house for me, and that meant that if anything went awry, my family would have been homeless. And thank by the grace of God, everything went well, and I got a second chance. Speaking of empathy, which we'll talk about later, the judge that I was in front of said, "Hey, I'm looking at your grades. I'm looking at what you do. You're a good kid. Like, I'm not going to have you do 7 years in prison, and you're just getting started out. I see something great in you." And it just reminds me now today that Naira Rivera said that a butterfly can't see its wings. But that judge and my mom really allowed me to flourish and see my wings in that moment. So from that point forward, everything I've done, from going into the military at 22 to starting this organization to investing in the communities, has been to help other people see their wings. So that is my purpose and my plight. And that's how I got here today.
Yeah, well, I love this, the fact that you talk about empathetic leadership. What's the definition of that in your mind?
Yeah, so empathetic leadership for me. First, let's start with the Merriam-Webster definition of empathy is to be able to process, feel, and understand the emotions of others. But I actually take it a step further when it comes to empathetic leadership, and I say you also have to be able to process and understand and feel your emotions, right? Because I feel that self leadership is the first step to being able to lead empathetically. When you understand your values, your triggers, your biases, your fears, and how that can convey an impact and be experienced outwardly, then and only then are you able to make space and create that room to be curious and to listen and ask the right questions so that you can lead with that empathy. That Merriam-Webster talks about. So for me, it's really a holistic standpoint and perspective that we're talking about when we look at empathy.
Yeah, it's because what you've described is in the book I wrote, which was Equipped to Lead, the Extraordinary Power of Emotional Intelligence, talk about EQ.
Mhm.
And there's two definitions of EQ that I'm not going to say they're mine, they're just the two that I landed on. But one is it's do I react or do I respond effectively?
Mhm.
Right? And then the second, though, that is even, I think it falls in line with what you're talking about, is can I see life and situations and circumstances through the eyes of others? And so if I can do
Yeah.
that, then that's going to drive my EQ score up. I'm fascinated with something, Jevon, because I love the space that you and I spend time in. I just do because of the fact that there's a misnomer that is given to it. It's called soft skills, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there and
Yes.
it's like yeah, I saw your head do it like mine does. There's nothing soft about the subject we're dealing with because of the fact that it's much harder to be effective in the space that we're talking about than it is to be able to go and code a program or design a bridge. It just
Yeah.
is because we're dealing
One
with
hundred
human.
percent.
Yeah.
I
So
wholeheartedly agree, Mike.
so here's the question I've got for you because of, and again, you got to give me some liberty with this. I don't have the same background that you have. I've been blessed. I've not spent a night in jail. Probably should have before, but I'm not sure. But the
Hey, we all have times where we might
the
have. You should have been.
That's it. And the second is I wasn't blessed or honored to serve in the military. All right. Uh, and so if you look at your background and your situation and the things that you've experienced and what you've gone through and what you've looked at life, both of those environments are very my language, tough guy. It's like strength and survive. Uh, Yet you go through this, and now you've landed up with it's not the autocratic, dictatorial, you know, General Patton type of leadership. It's literally more of something that is engaging the hearts of the people that follow us. Uh, there's a to me there's a your background didn't lead you to where you are right now
Mhm.
from an
Well,
environment standpoint.
yeah, what I would say is, again, that introspection, like really sitting down to say, what part did I play? How do I impact? What are the lessons I learned, and how can I apply them when I'm moving forward? Those types of questions have centered me on this empathetic leadership, this emotional intelligence, because when I look back at my experiences, what was the difference between success and failure of a mission? What was the difference between a kid that had a lot of potential but never tapped into it? What was the difference between a project at work that ended up project scope creeping or failing or flat crashing and burning, and one that succeeded before it was supposed to succeed or be implemented? And that difference was that emotional intelligence, and it started at the leadership position. Those leaders in the military who really didn't come in and with their guns blazing saying, "Hey, all right, here's how we're going to do this thing. Hey, we have our orders, go get it done." They said, "All right, here's our orders, here's the mission, here's what we need to do. What are you seeing in the field? What do you think is the best move?" That's the difference between our success and our failure. That's the difference between your people taking ownership and saying, "All right, cool. I see how my task and my job and my daily duties impact the greater good of the team. I am invested in doing my best because when I look to my left and my right, I know how they depend on me." Right? That's the difference. So that's why I landed on this empathetic leadership piece, is because I saw so many things go awry because the leader was the opposite. The leader was narcissistic. The leader was authoritarian. The leader had this conventional wisdom and leadership that is, do as I say. I don't need to hear you. I don't need to care about your feelings. I don't care. You're a machine. You're a cog in a wheel. And that never worked in any of the spaces I was in. When you think about the military, right? The military, the old culture, suicide was the number one cause of death in the military. Whether someone deployed,
Really?
yes, whether someone deployed or if they never set foot in the sand, it didn't matter. And it didn't matter because the culture was one where you could not say, "I'm not okay." The culture was one that said, "I don't care about your feelings. You have a job to do. Get it done." The culture was one to say, "Suck it up and drive on. Embrace the suck." All these sayings that we would say, that was the antithesis of, "Hey, I need to check in with myself to make sure I'm okay. I'm good." Even in the Soldier's Creed, which the Army says, it says, "I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade." Now, when you think
Hmm.
about those words that is embedded in us in the way we do things, placing the mission first means that it has nothing to do with us and everything to do with everything else. So that's why I was like, all right, what is the catalyst for this? And the catalyst is, again, if you are not empathetic to yourself first, everything else starts to fall apart. And even when you do succeed, you don't see it as a success because you're like, what's the next mission? What's the next
Mhm.
thing I need to do? And I've seen that so many times.
Yeah, especially in when you and I first met, you were working in the technology space.
Hmm.
That was your, that was your platform you used to sort of jump off into building this amazing career that you're on right now. I'm just kind of curious because of the clients I've worked with that are in engineering or IT, accounting, finance, or in the recruiting area, which is another aspect of approaches technology. Um,
Hmm.
what what are some of the what have you observed as some of the mistakes that leaders made because you get hired because of this great intellect that you've got? That's what you're hired, and it's your ability to go and ferret out bit, bods, and bytes, or in accounting, ticking and tying, and understanding FASBs or whatever. But then you get promoted based upon your ability to increase the productivity of the people around you. And you just see people, especially leaders, that they have a chasm that they have to bridge. What did you observe that were some of the challenges that you saw that your counterparts were having to wrestle with?
Yeah, I mean, the main challenge is you mentioned coming from a technical standpoint, you're promoted for your technical acumen, but then that has nothing to do with people. And that chasm that you're talking about is the lack of development of people skills. You mentioned that EQ and all these things are seen as soft. Well, they're actually foundational to success. So that's where we come in, where we can feel that. And another point to that is organizations automatically jump to training, but there's mindset and culture that need to be addressed first. Culture starts at the individual level. When we
Mm-hmm.
hire someone who is technically inclined for a people center or people focused role, there's a disconnect there. And that disconnect is the fact that they are doers. They're like, hey, I know how to do this thing. And if this person isn't getting it done the right way, I am going to go ballistic on them, right? Instead of
Mm-hmm.
supporting them and asking them the right questions, because I don't know how to do that. That is unfamiliar to me. So we need to ensure that the mindset and the culture of the upcoming leaders, the emerging leaders, the high potentials is to say, I need to lead. Leaders first thing is long-term vision, and long-term vision entails making sure your people are straight. A
Mm-hmm.
manager's standpoint is, which is what most people are, is to get the thing done, to worry about the process, to worry about the outcome. So we're asking people to do two different things when we start to bring them up. And that's where that chasm, that's where that divide is coming from. So
Mm-hmm.
I recommend that organizations first see if that's even something that people are interested in. In the tech world, you have two different tracks and you're respected the same way. You can still be an IC, an individual contributor in the tech space, and just take a tech route and become an evangelist or a principal and still do the thing you love to do, which is the doing. Or you can take that people route, which requires that different skill set. But if I say that that's what I want to do, then I'm more inclined to do what it takes to get the right mindset and culture. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
forced into that people role, then I'm never really going to become that leader that you hired me to become, because that wasn't my natural inclination, and that doesn't align with my values. So what we have to do as organizations is understand how we can tie organizational goals with individual goals, and that way we get that buy-in, because buy-in is not just from the top down, it's from the bottom up as well.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing, and I've seen over time and time again.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.